Alright, go ahead and open up your Crossfire kits here.
Yes. Are you sure?
Well, mine gets cleaned up.
No, earlier she was in the back.
Alright, find the instructions.
Look smart, no conversation.
Alright, and on the front page it has your parts list there, so make sure you've got everything. Okay, so we've got a combination nose cone and tail cone here. We'll take these apart. So one will become the nose and one will become a nozzle. Got some more self-stick decals. Okay, and then you've got an entire fin stock here. If yours is falling apart, just make sure you can account for all the fins. Alright, now this is going to be something unusual here. So the body tube has got these slots in it. And this uses what's called through-the-wall fin mounts, which makes it exceedingly strong. And we'll go back into that later on. Okay, and then you've got a motor mount. And then in the small parts package here, we've got an engine spacer, engine clip, shock cord, centering rings, thrust ring, launch lug, and yes, the parachute. Okay, so if you've confirmed that you have all of your parts, let's go ahead and go on to the first page of instructions here. Alright, and that's to prepare the fins. So like we did last time, we're going to sand these with the medium grit sandpaper while they're still in the fin stock. Okay, and then once you've got that, go ahead and cut out the fins. Be really careful here of these little jogs and such. Those you don't want to break off. Alright, so once you've got them cut out, and if you're still cutting, that's fine. But once you got these things cut out like we did last time, we first just want to go through and lightly sand all the edges so that any of the remaining little nubs there are taken off. Okay, and you can do this like I've got here, just sandwich them all in a group. Alright, and then just drag them across the paper a couple of times. Okay, once you've got them all sanded, you're going to round the leading edge here just like we did on the previous rocket. Right. Only the leading edge though, leave the other edges square. Okay, and make sure you don't sand the corners here. We don't want to round off the corners. Those should have a nice straight edge to them.
Is it the one that doesn't have a little nook in it?
Right, round off the opposite of the one with the notch. So just in profile, that should be rounded. Don't round the corners here. Instead of going on the root edge, go in between the two little pieces. For the main ones, go ahead and stick them in the edges again. Now, the reason this fin has this little extension here on the root edge is that when we get this all together, those actually go through these slots and we glue them to the motor mount. Okay, so it makes it gives it really strong fins that way. Now be careful on the little guys here. Try to keep the sanding sealer out of the notch. If you get it in there, you can sand it back out again, but it's kind of a pain. All right, and as tempting as it might be, don't just dip the little ones into the sanding sealer. All right, everybody. Once you've got the sanding sealer on all these, we're just going to set them aside and let those dry overnight. All right, guys, let's get your motor mount tube, and you'll need the rings out of the small parts package. Okay, first we're going to need to do some measurements here. So like we did last time, right aft on one end of your motor mount. Okay, and then if you look on the next part in the instructions where it says assemble the engine mount, it's going to give us a whole bunch of measurements to do. Okay, so starting at the aft end, we need one at 3 millimeters. Three millimeters, very close to the edge there. And then we'll need another one at 16 millimeters. It's going to be about there. Okay. And then we're going to go up to 5.7 centimeters. And then another one at 6.7 centimeters. All right, and then on the 5.7 millimeter mark or centimeter mark, go ahead and extend that a little beyond where the other ones fell. So let's bring it out here. We're going to cut a little slot in that one. Okay. Once you got your marks on that, then take the yellow spacer tube here, and we're going to make a mark at 13 millimeters from its aft end. Okay, now take one of your applicators here, all right, and have your thrust ring ready. Okay, so like we did earlier with the other rocket, we're going to use our thumbnail here as a guide. All right, so take your swab here, put it at the 5.7 centimeter mark, the one I had you make a bit bigger, and then put your thumbnail at the aft end of the tube. And take your glue, put glue all over the swab. Again, you want it fully covered, but you don't want it to drip off. Okay, and then going into the aft end, go right down the middle till you hit your thumbnail there, and then go all the way around. And take that back out. Then take your thrust ring here, put it in, and then use your spacer to slide that thrust ring up to the mark. All right, so right to that 13 millimeter mark, and then immediately pull it back out. Okay, once you've got that in, now take your hobby knife, and remember we made this mark a little wider. All right, and you're going to cut a 3-inch slot away from the rest of those lines. And that should be going in right underneath your thrust ring. All right, so if you meet some resistance, just move down a slight bit and try again. Okay, and once you've got your slit there, this is where your engine clip is going to go in. Okay, and then if you look down it now, come on, let's focus here. There we go. All right, so you should be able to see the edge of the engine clip there right below the thrust ring. All right, once you've got the clip in place here, make sure you can still see your other marks along this. All right, and for now, go ahead and dry fit your centering rings on. So slide the first one over the top here. All right, and scoot it toward the aft. And this is going to go down until it reaches the second mark. There, so that's your 1.6 centimeter mark. All right, and it should be on the outside there. Okay, and then your other one is going to go down to this mark here. All right, so it's going to look like this. Okay, once you got it fit in place, then go ahead and start with the aft one, push that up a little bit, put a bead of glue around it. Okay, and then go ahead and slide that back down to the mark. And then anything that gets pushed up, just smooth that in with the finger. Okay, and then you'll do the same with the forward ring. Just pull it forward a little bit, put a bead of glue around it, and then do the same thing. All right, make sure you don't have any glue on top of the surface of the rings. Once you've got that in, then go ahead and you can make a fillet along the other side of each ring. Okay, so just run glue around it, smooth it in with your finger again. All right, and once more, if you get anything on the surface of the ring, just take that off quickly. Alright, and once you have all the glue in place, go ahead and just set that aside, and we're going to let that dry until tomorrow. Alright, on your body tube, first just make a mark halfway in between any two of the fin slots. Just make a little mark there. And then go to a door frame and extend that mark all the way down the length of the tube. Okay, once you've got your line, then from the aft end, measure 8.3 centimeters and make a little mark there. And that's where your launch lug will go. Go ahead and take your sandpaper like we did last time. Alright, and just roughen up the area where that launch lug is going to go. And then even though we've got pre-cut slots here, just go ahead and a couple of strokes along each slot. And again, it just gives us better adhesion of our glue.
I'm just going to sand the entire thing when we're all in paint.
Now with your nice new blade, cut this junction carefully. And it's best, don't try and just do it all at once. Just keep your blade on there and turn the nose cone assembly. Alright, once you've got it scored all the way around, you can just snap it. Alright, now very carefully cut out this little square here that's left in the nose cone base. You don't want to cut through that because that's where your shock cord and parachute will attach. So cut that out and then put the nose cone aside for now. Okay. On what remains, this is what's going to be the nozzle, and you need to cut off the two conical pieces here. Alright, so start these by scoring them all the way around. Okay, here you can stab into it and then carefully run it around. Keep your fingers out of the way of the blade. Alright, and then do the same thing on the other side.
Bro, I took my blade.
Okay, and so now once you got that down, you'll have the nozzle piece here that's flared out, and then the other piece is what goes into the body tube. Alright, so the body tube end of this you don't have to do anything else with. On the nozzle end, take your sandpaper and just sand it smooth. And this is where you can remove any imperfections, like if you happen to cut up into it like I did. See, there's this rectangle piece on the nozzle. All right, you're going to have to cut that out because that's where your engine clip will go. So carefully, just cut straight down on it, on either side. All right, and then you can just peel that back and it'll break off. Okay, so while everything is still drying, we can go ahead and do this. So in the instructions, it shows simply tying the parachute onto the nose cone. I don't like to do that because it makes it hard to change it out if you get one damaged or if you need to put a streamer in or something like that. So that's what the snap spool is for. These are the same thing you get at fishing stores. Alright, so the first thing I want you to do is completely unpack the parachute.
That's beautiful. I am in love with this. It looks better than our streamers.
Okay. Now there should be 3 string loops here.
Looks like a jellyfish.
What in the world? Alright, hang on here. Alright.
Yes.
So one will go right across the middle, and then you have one on each side. Alright, so get those all untangled, and then loop them around a single finger like this.
There we go.
Alright, so once you got the loops around your finger, then come back
How do we
to,
loop it?
just like that. Okay, just put the loops around one finger here, and then go to the other side, find the very center of the parachute, and hold that with your other hand like this. Okay, so you have your fingers over here, fingers here, and all of the corners then of the parachute should be pretty close to each other. Okay, so if they're not, you can simply move your finger a little bit here to change the length of those cords. Alright, so once you got that there, come around to the loops on your finger, and you want to take your other hand and pinch that off so they don't change length now. You should have all your loops right here. Alright? If you lose them, then just go through and do it again. Okay, but you want to be holding on to the loops now, like this. Alright, and then go ahead and shorten them up even more. And you're going to elongate these. It's kind of like threading a really crappy needle. Okay, take the swivel side of your snap swivel here, and you're going to pass those through. Yep, the golden loop on the end. Okay, and once you've got it through, then go ahead and reopen the loop. So you got it back the way you had it. Alright, so I've got the snap swivel dangling here on the bottom. I'm going to take the entire snap swivel and pass it through all the loops, and then pull the loops down. All while I'm still holding on to the strings back here so they don't change shape or length. Alright, and then you just pull that taut up against the loop there. Okay, so once you've got that through, then go back and recheck your chute and make sure that the shroud lines are still all about the same length there. And your corners are in more or less the same position. Right. If they shifted a little bit, it's not a big deal. But if you've got one or two that are definitely longer than the others, you need to redo it. Alright, so if you got it the way you want it, then take your glue. Now you want just a little teeny tiny dot of glue on that knot. There we go. Alright, so just work that in a little bit there. Work it in. Okay. Now what this does is it gives you options. So the first thing, anytime this is coming down, there's always a little imperfection in the parachute somewhere, and it tends to cause it to spin and twist on its way down. Having the swivel here reduces some of that twisting that way. Alright, and then the snap end here, if you open that up, that will go on your nose cone in that little loop there. You can do it, yeah. We'll take it back apart, but that's how it'll fit. Okay, well, let's say that you've got a really windy day and you don't want your rocket to drift off as it's being recovered. You could just snap this right off and replace it with a streamer or a smaller parachute. And a lot of Rocketeers don't like to store parachutes in their rockets, so they'll unclip them and they'll have like a box or a drawer that's just full of parachutes. Okay, if you look at your nose cone, unlike the one we did last time, this has got a seam that goes down its entire length on both sides. So this is molded using a little bit different process. And what we want to do is take your fine sandpaper here in your hand. Don't do it with the sanding block this time, because we want to conform it.
I can't get my block. I'm going to get my text out.
Yeah. Alright, and so what you're going to do is just take your fine sandpaper and sand along that seam and knock down any high points. All right, and then once you've got the seams knocked down, you may still see a little groove there, and there's not much we can do about that at this point. Some people will use what's called contour putty for plastic models, but we don't have the time to do that and let it dry and resand it. Okay, so once you've got those two seams done, then lightly sand the entire rest of the nose cone. All right, and then just take a wipe here and wipe off the sanding dust. And then check it, make sure there's no other high spots there that you missed. Okay, and then we can go ahead and just set that aside.
That's what I did.
All right, guys, so now that we have the sanding sealer dry on this, use your fine sandpaper, the purple stuff here, and just go through and lightly sand these again. So this is just the same way we did on the last rocket. But with the finer sandpaper here, hopefully we'll get a smoother finish. All right. And again, you just want to sand down through the top of the sanding sealer and sand any bumps flat, but don't go all the way down and through the wood. And don't forget the little pieces here as well. And again, be careful that you don't break those. They're really fragile at those tips. All right, well, I just did what I told you guys not to do and broke that. All right. In this case, it can be fixed when we stick it on the fin. All right, so first I want you to do is take your motor mount here, and we're going to dry fit this into the body tube on the aft end here. Line up your engine clip with your launch lug line like we've done before. All right, and put that in flush. Okay, and then pull it back a bit. All right, so if you come back to our lines, remember you had this line here at 3 millimeters, right on the aft end of your motor. That's what's going to line up with the body tube. And so now, if everything has gone together correctly, you shouldn't be able to see any rings within the slots. All right, if you make your motor mount completely flush, you'll see the aft ring. If you've got it pulled out too far, you'll see the forward ring there. Okay, so you shouldn't see any rings. Okay, so yeah, if you didn't get your rings where they're supposed to be, it means we'll have to trim the fin tabs on the motor mount. All right, then take your nozzle here, and that should fit over the engine clip. Okay, and then the ring here around the top of the nozzle should be flush up against your motor mount tube. And then if you look at it from the end, okay, the motor mount tube will be just flush with the top of the nozzle bell there. All right, and so your engine clip should be at this cutout that you made. And that allows this to bend back further so that you can get the engine in and out easily. Okay, everybody there? Okay, so once, if that fits for everybody, go ahead and take it apart. Okay, go ahead and put your motor mount back in so you can visualize something here. Alright, so if you put your engine rings on incorrectly, they may be showing in here, and just take a pencil. So if you're, say your forward ring is there, when the motor mount is in properly, just make a little pencil mark where it is. Okay, same thing as, if you have your aft one, make a pencil mark where it is. Okay, now on mine I don't need that because it's not going to show. All right. So if yours is properly spaced, then what we're going to do is we're going to put a ring of glue right at the very tip of the slot all the way around. Okay, and then we'll put this in halfway, and then you're going to put another ring of glue just inside here. Okay. Now ideally you'd put that other ring of glue right here at the other side of the notch there. And that's how the instructions show doing it. So what the instructions show is putting a ring of glue here and a ring of glue here and just sliding this through both of them. All right. The problem if you do that, it's really easy for it to get hung up somewhere in the middle because it's got too much glue there. So go ahead and just watch me first and then do yours. So I'm going to put a ring of glue up inside. Alright, so you can use your applicator here. And it's nice as you can just look through the slots. Alright, so right there I'm at the edge of my slots. I'm just going to put that ring all the way around in there. Okay. Now the next part's a little trickier. I said, what they have you doing is put another ring right inside there. What I'm going to do is now slide my motor mount in about halfway so that my forward ring here is not coming in contact with glue yet. All right, and I want to be able to pivot this like I'm doing here. And so now what you can do is take a little bit more glue. All right, and you're going to force it up inside there. Okay, and as I turn it, I'll just move my motor mount around. So now it's hanging down again. I'm going to put some more glue up in here. All right, and you don't need great big globs of glue, just enough to coat your swab. All right, and I'm going to come around one more time and put some glue in there. Okay, this is critical. Make sure you're doing it. Okay, so go ahead and realign this with your launch lug line. Okay, and in one nice fluid motion here, get your centering ring there right where it needs to be, and now push the whole thing in quickly up to that 3mm point. All right, if you're too slow about what's going to happen is it's going to try and grab inside there, and you may not get your engine mount all the way up to where it's supposed to be. Okay, so go ahead and do that same thing, and if your engine rings are not where they're supposed to be, just make that measurement like I showed you here, and that's where your glue is going to go. For the aft one, do it just the way I did it here. Okay, I had a little video snafu here. So what I've done is put a bead of plastic cement right inside the aft end of the body tube and then slid the nozzle into that, making sure that the engine clip here is in proper place. Okay, so after that's set in place, go ahead and get your fins. Okay. Now, your fins should fit right into the slots here. Okay, but if you have your centering rings out of place, okay, then just put your fin here against the slot and then mark on your fin here where those fin edges go. Okay, so depending on where if you have your centering rings visible in the slot, you're going to cut these tabs to make them fit. Okay, and then we're going to glue these on just like we did other fins, except having the slots there actually makes it a lot easier to keep it straight. Okay, and as before, less is better. Now you're going to need to put it on the edge of the fin tab as well as the root edge. All right, and just like we've done before, go ahead and smooth this out. Now before you do that, look down inside here. If you've got any big blobs of glue that ended up on your motor mount, scrape those out, sand them out, whatever you need to do. Right, so now with your glue on there, just go ahead and touch it to it, and pull this back as far as it'll go in the slot. Okay, and then take that back off again, and just like we did before, wait 60 seconds, and then put the fin back. All right, so now make sure that this slot is facing aft, or you're gonna have a really funny looking rocket. All right, and go ahead and stick that back on. Okay, and then just as you did before, go ahead and make sure that it's perpendicular, but the slots are going to keep it pretty straight there. Okay, now in some conditions you may have a little gap on the forward or rear root edges there, and as long as it's making contact down inside, that's fine. We can fill that in with fillets later on. So go ahead and let this dry for 5 to 10 minutes, and then you're just going to repeat this with the other two fins. Okay, once your fins are all on and at least stable there, these are called strakes, by the way, the little teardrop guys. Go ahead and glue those on, and they're going to go in the slot here like that. And to glue them, initially just put a little tiny bit of glue at the bottom of the slot on the strake. So I'm just going to put this little bit here. Okay, so just a little bit of glue. And then carefully put that on. Okay, and then you can use the handle of your applicator. If you got a little bit of glue squirting out there, just smooth it in with the edge. And do that all the way around. And then we'll go ahead and let all this dry. And when you come back tomorrow, then we'll put fillets over everything, okay, including the strakes. And then once you have your strakes glued on, go ahead and put your launch lug on. And remember, the back end of the launch lug will be at the mark we made here. So it's going to go beyond that mark. So when you got all your strakes on, go just kind of turn your rocket around. Make sure they're all fully inserted and have the same length of material showing off the aft end. All right, and then for the launch lug, this will be in the little small parts bag if you haven't already taken everything out. Okay. So that's going to go here, forward of the mark we made. Go ahead and put it on, then take it off, let it get tacky again. All right, and once it's tacky, go ahead and put that back on again. And then just make sure it's lined up with your launch lug line and the body tube, and then set it aside to dry. All right, we're going to do two things here right away, and then we'll let it dry while we go do other stuff. Okay, so first find your shock cord and then cut out the shock cord mount here on the front page. Alright, and this is going to go together the same way we did on the previous rocket. Okay, so just like we did on the previous rocket, go ahead and put a film of glue over the shock cord mount. Okay, and then put your shock cord over the 2 and the 3 at a bit of an angle. And then fold it 1 into the 2 and 2 into 3. Okay, and then once you've got it all together, put a little bend in it. All right, go ahead and bend this some more so you can kind of match the curvature of the tube. And then go ahead and put some more glue on that. S'more glue, yeah. Okay, and then like before, this needs to go down at least 1.5 inches into the body tube, preferably more.
Which way do we bend it?
Convex, so it's bent away from the shock cord. Now once you've got it in there, again, turn the tube so that the shock cord mount is against your hand like this. And then just press downward to get it as flat as possible.
You want it at the end of the body?
Okay, so we're going to do fillets on this, and it's going to be the same as you did on the previous rocket, where you're going to do it along the root edges here, where they join to the body tube. You'll also do the launch lug here, and then put some small fillets on the strakes.
Huh?
Alright, so let's go ahead and put these on, smooth them in. Okay, you can go ahead and do all the fillets at once as long as you keep your rocket horizontal. Alright, so once you get all the fillets on the fins, go to the launch lug. Alright, now when you go to the strakes, and I know you may not be there yet, here use the handle of your applicator here, or just a small wood dowel. Okay, when you do the strakes, the little teardrop pieces there, alright, you could probably get better results if you just use a little stick like this. You put in the fillet that way, and then use your finger to get rid of the excess glue again. But these don't need to be really thick. Once all of your fillets are dry, then this is ready to be painted. Now I'm not going to do that here since people like to paint these lots of different color schemes and such. You do want to remember though, in part of your final assembly, once you have this painted, go ahead, tie a double knot in the shock cord around that eyelet there, and then put a little bead of white or wood glue on that to keep the knot from slipping. Okay, I'm going to wait on that because I do want to paint this separately. And then also don't forget to put your parachute on, either tying it to the nose cone like the instructions show, or if you use my idea of a snap swivel, then that'll just snap on, and that would go right next to the shock cord like that. So that's my rocket completely built, though not painted yet. And I hope you had as much fun building this as I did. Have a great launch and a safe recovery, and please stay tuned for more of my rocketry videos.